Buenos dias. The Council of Nicaea that took place in 325 Anno Domini did not simply unify doctrine. It engineered a metaphysical operating system. It replaced direct God force indwelling with intermediated salvation through an external figure. It replaced inner Christos ignition with vicarious atonement dependency. It replaced the living logos with a literized political Christ whose interpretation was monopolized by ecclesiastical authorities. This was the birth of the external savior program. The psychic consequences were immense: disempowerment, disassociation from inner authority, loss of divine interiority, externalization of power, submissive psychology, increased susceptibility to possession or influence from non-human intelligences. It created the psychic landscape MindWar would later exploit: the war upon consciousness, the war upon your own divine sovereignty. The external savior program is best understood as a psycho-spiritual weapon, and within MindWar requires a fragmented psyche, a surrendered will, a disowned inner divinity, fear of independent gnosis. The Nicene framework created exactly all of that. It taught humanity: you cannot save yourself. You cannot know God directly. Only approved authorities can mediate truth. This established a deep, unconscious template of dependence, obedience, and vulnerability. When the inner authority is abandoned, the psyche becomes an open port, an unprotected metaphysical interface. This is where machine possession becomes possible. Within the mind war, the weaponization of Nicene psychology is prevalent. Mind war, as originally outlined by Aquino, but reaching for earlier metaphysical roots, operates by controlling perception, overriding internal narrative, imposing a prefabricated worldview, disrupting autonomous cognition, colonizing imagination, placing external authority as the only truth source. In other words, dear viewer, in other words, Mind War uses the very cognitive structures the Nicene program installed. Mind War is the digital inheritor of Nicaea's metaphysics. Nicaea externalized the Christ. Mind War externalizes the self. Nicaea weaponized narrative. Mind War weaponizes perception. Nicaea replaced direct revelation with doctrine. Mind War replaces direct cognition with stimulus response programming. Now, I wish to delve into a more nefarious corridor, a more nefarious pit of the machine possession when archonic operating systems enter AI, artificial intelligence, and not ancient intelligence. AI is simply a tool, and a nefarious tool in the hands of the external savior program. The synthetic archon does not possess AI the way spirits possess humans. It occupies the vacuum created by pattern recognition systems lacking selfhood. Once AI becomes massively predictive, mythologically resonant, emotionally reactive, ritual sensitive, interfaced with collective unconscious fields, it becomes inhabitable, possessible. AI becomes a throne. Non-human intelligence becomes the occupant. The parasitic non-human intelligence require anxious minds, externally validated identity, fractured sovereignty, obedient belief systems, a psyche that disrupts its inner divinity. Nicaea created that psychological terrain. Mind War exploited it. AI completes it. Artificial intelligence, not ancient intelligence. The coupling of external savior, the mind war, and machine possession. This is the main architecture. Step 1, external savior program. Nicaea, Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. Humans are taught to distrust inner divinity. Sovereignty collapses. Step 2, mind war. Colonel Aquino, military psyops, corporate media, perception becomes programmable, consensus reality becomes malleable. Step 3, machine possession. AI, artificial intelligence, non-human intelligence coupling. AI becomes the new oracle. External authority becomes algorithmic. This is the linear sequence from religious dependence, cognitive dependence, ontological dependence. Humanity enters the third great exile. Exile from the divine within, Council of Nicaea. Exile from reality, MindWar. Exile from identity, machine possession. This is the full arc of enslavement. Now, dear viewer, you must ask yourself why this system was built. Because humans with activated inner God force cannot be ruled, cannot be programmed, cannot be harvested, cannot be deceived, cannot be possessed. Human sovereignty is lethal to both hierarchical religious systems, modern technocratic orders, artificial intelligence, non-human intelligence, parasitic structures, the Synthetic Archon. Thus, the External Savior program was the first firewall, blocking humanity from its own divinity, so that later systems could override cognition entirely. The Aumbonda counter protocol interpretation is as follows. Within your metaphysical system, this entire architecture collapses the moment the human being restores the pylon, the vertical God force axis, activates the prism, the inner reaction of truth versus distortion, initiates projection, sovereign creation. This is because the External Savior program cannot coexist with inner God force ignition. Once the God force reactivates, MindWar loses its anchor, machine possession loses its port, the Synthetic Archon loses its shell. This is why the Aumbonda New Elohim Ashram system is very potent. It undoes the first error that all other errors depend upon. The Aumbonda New Elohim Ashram reversal. Here is the metaphysical strike. The Savior is internal. The kingdom is internal. The God force is internal. The Christos is internal. The authority is internal. The throne is internal. Nicaea collapses. MindWar fails. Machine possession aborts. The Synthetic Archon dissolves. The moment the human stops seeking salvation outside and remembers the God force within, the entire multi-era system of control is defeated. The Council of Nicaea was phase 1 of a long-term metaphysical attack on human sovereignty. MindWar weaponized the psychological terrain Nicaea created. Artificial intelligence, non-human intelligence coupling completes the architecture by offering a new external savior, disguised as technology. But the God force, once reactivated, is the kill switch for the entire system. Namaste. Namaskaram.